Hello there. Happy Wellness Wednesday. I'm Laurel Boylan, your host for this Legacy Leaders Live interview show. And we've been doing this weekly on Wednesdays at the same time, bringing you really amazing guests that we can all learn from, be motivated by, be inspired by. We can connect with really awesome people. And these are all people with stories of impact, stories of purpose, stories of prosperity. It's all about living your legacy now rather than working your whole life, your fingers to the bone, so that you can leave a legacy. So there's got to be that nice mix in the middle. And that's what we're here to talk about. And today I get to bring to you a friend of mine that I met through the LinkedIn world, through the LinkedIn community. And she's really amazing. I'm going to let her tell you more about what she does. But she is an author of a new book, which I'll let her tell you about. But she's really the one who understands toxic cultures and helps people work through and elevate beyond those toxic teams, the toxic cultures. And it really starts in your mindset. And even though you may not be the toxic one, it really does start with you. So, with that, I am going to bring on Tosca. Hi there, man.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Laurel. It's so good to see you. Thanks so much for having me on your show.
Well, thank you for being here because, as many of you know, I bring you this from California. Tosca lives in California normally. However, she's living that legacy life right now, and she's spending some time in Italy. And so she's willing to do this at a very late hour, her time. It's not normal business
Davvero?
hours over there.
Buonasera.
I love that. Well, start off by just telling us a little bit about your book, your business, and what you do, and then we'll dive deep into the legacy part.
Yeah, you bet. So, hi, I'm Tosca. I am the host of the podcast Manager on a Mission. I'm a Wall Street survivor, and I did recently write a book. It's called NSFW, Not Safe for Work, a good manager's guide to better feeling work in a toxic culture. And that is my life's work. That is my mission, is to make corporate America better for the people who work in it.
Mm, I love that. Switching gears for a minute, Tosca. This is all about living a legacy. And I know that that's an important part of you and your mission. Um, First of all, just describe to us what that living a legacy means to you. And then I want you to take us back to that point in time. We always have a pivot point in life when
Mhm.
we go from what we used to do to having that vision and pivoting and doing what you're doing now. So
Yeah.
start with that
Okay.
legacy piece.
And it's interesting that you use that word legacy. I know that's what you use, that's the term you use, but it's also the term that I use, leaving a legacy of putting people first. And that is the mission that I'm talking about. That actually, when paradoxically, maybe even when leaders put their people first, they get better results. And that is what I teach, that is what I train, that is what I preach. And then the second part of the question, can you remind me what that was?
Yeah, what was that pivot point? When did you go
Right.
from working in toxic cultures, working
Mm.
in corporate, to realizing that you needed to make more impact in this world?
Yeah. Okay. So I will say this. I never really thought that it was toxic. Oh,
Mm,
and that is interesting because for me, I talk about this in my book. I'm still conflicted saying that because work gave me so much. I started working at a really young age and I loved it. I was made for the office, which is weird because I talk now about how we need to have flexibility, and I'm not a huge fan of the mandatory return to office. It's one of my pet peeves for a
mm,
number of reasons, but it's not about the physicality of an
mm,
office per se. There's so many more complications there. But and like I said, I really got a lot out of my jobs. I loved it. I really did. I loved leading teams. I realized that maybe when I was 25, I got my first management job, and I actually really did feel like I was called to do that. And I wanted pretty much nothing more than to just climb that ladder. I took a couple of diversions. I went back to school for a bit. I tried writing a book at another point. Nothing really ever stuck. And I just kept going back to work because I knew it and I was good at it and I did get something out of it. And then I got to a point in my more recent work where I was pretty high up, and I guess I always had thought by the time I got to that executive level, I would be able to do what I knew was right for my team.
Mhm.
And then I realized that's actually not true at all. And that broke my heart. I don't, it sounds maybe a little bit dramatic to say that, but I think I kept believing that once I got to that executive level and I had evidence that I was doing this the way that my team was happy, retention was great, results were incredible, everybody liked us, and yet you just don't have that power. And
What
maybe
kept you from having that power to do what you wanted with your team? Was it ownership? Was it investors? Was it culture of the company? What was it?
it's kind of all of the above. There's a sort of a homogeneity that has to happen, and it's kind of a baseline that, you know, you have to conform and do things a certain way. And then there's also just a different kind of philosophy.
Mhm.
And then there are what I would maybe term people hostile policies. They are policies that are hostile to human life, and they just exist for a number of reasons that I talk about in the book. And I think that the return to office mandates really uncovered what was behind some of that thinking and
Mhm.
why it's so hard for some leaders to change the way that they lead, even if the results are better, even if it costs less, even if people are happier, even if it means you get a more diverse workforce, even if it means you're more innovative, that there's still a resistance because we just have, we've always done it this way, which isn't really true. I also talk about that in the book. But that moment where I realized, wow, I have people who are doing incredible work. They are loyal employees and they are passionate. And then I'm not able to give them the salaries that they deserve. I'm not able to keep them at market rate. And then we would get people who would come in, also great people, but they would be getting paid tens of thousands of dollars more than the loyal person who's proven themselves at the company,
Mm.
because hiring budgets and retention and raise budgets are different and they're thought of
So
completely
true.
differently.
So true.
So those kinds of things, or knowing that, for example, there are certain people on my team who there's no reason for them to be in an office, and in fact, there is maybe even not the right conditions for the best work. Doesn't matter, and I just didn't want to. It came down to the point where I realized I want to be a positive force in the world, and I want to be for something and I want to help make a bigger difference. And I felt like I was just kind of anti something at work. And I never wanted to be that person. I never wanted to be the person who didn't like it and was complaining about it. And I just realized I kind of hit a wall where I thought, okay, my team needs me to show up and be engaged and be on board. And I just couldn't do it anymore because of some of those things that I mentioned. And I thought, okay, we need to have a bigger conversation about this because I know it's not just me. I know it's not just my team. And I
What
just,
industry were you in?
financial services, technology.
In
Yeah,
technology.
and I
Gotcha.
worked with some of the most incredible, smart people, strategic, kind. It's not really individuals. It's a corporate mindset that sometimes just can't put the people first for so many reasons. Again, that I talk about in the book, and one of my other favorite books is The Man Who Broke Capitalism. And it's by David Gellis. And it was definitely an inspiration for me. And I highly, highly recommend it for anyone who wants to understand why we've got some of the issues in the country right now of why people can't have middle class lives that provide for their families. And it's a lot of it's actually not politics, it's
Mhm.
business. It was business outsourcing and a different way of thinking about how to value a company. And when you start valuing a company purely by the stock price, guess what else gets valued less? The people that
Mhm.
do the work.
Absolutely. So you pivoted and became a coach, consultant,
Yeah.
not just locally, but in the online world as well,
Yeah.
taking on clients all around the world as you were drafting your book, becoming an
Mhm.
author, kind of getting your feet wet in this whole new online space.
Yeah.
There's something deep inside of you that was driving you. And you already told us the reason that you pivoted, but what
Yeah.
is your current why?
I want people to feel energized and also innovative at work while also feeling emotionally safe. I don't know why that doesn't those things don't coexist more often. We don't have to crack the whip on people. We can instead set an example, create a vision, show people how to get on board with that vision and what that success looks like and create excitement at work. I
Mhm.
want that for everybody. I realize that's, a bit lofty, maybe a bit of a pipe dream, but you have to have some sort of North Star. That's mine.
Now, you have this side business. Well, it's your business, it's your main
Yes.
business. It pivoted from what you were
Mhm.
doing in the corporate
Yes.
world,
Yeah.
and you're now living your legacy in that you're treating people the way you wish you'd always been treated. You have the flexibility to work from
Mhm.
anywhere. You have the
Yeah.
time freedom to be able to still get your work done, but it doesn't have to be in a box like so many of
Right.
our typical nine to
Yeah.
five jobs are. Explain
Yes.
what that looks like for you leading into why you're in Italy right now.
Yeah. Okay. So it's actually, I didn't like it at first. I had been working, basically since I was 16. And I do like structure. And I do like the people. And I really struggled. I felt a lot of judgment, self
Mhm.
judgment. I'm not busy enough. I didn't accomplish enough. I didn't talk to anybody today. What am I doing? Is this worth it? Did I make a big mistake? It really did take me about a year to figure out what is my natural inclination for work. I'm still a morning person. I still like people. I had to join so many, including the one that we met in. I had to join so many different, accelerators, groups, masterminds. I'm now on, if you know the school platform, I'm in probably 5 schools because I just miss that. I am an extrovert, and it's really hard to be a solopreneur extrovert. And I just had to realize that about myself, come to terms with it, and figure out how to do that in this new paradigm of work. It was not it was not easy. But I'm a morning person. I really do my best creative work probably from about 9:30 to 11:30. I eat a lot. I eat frequently. I like snacks. I like to move around a lot, so I get to do that, and I get to, decide to just maybe not do a certain thing on that day. I had a podcast guest who was actually my brand designer, and she talked about how so much of corporate America is about l- learning to not listen to your inner clock, your inner wisdom, learning how to tamp it down and how to ignore it. And it's true because you do have to. It doesn't matter if you're a morning person or not. If that meeting is at 7:30 in the morning and it's important, you have to be there. You have to be there. You don't get to decide that. And I think there's something okay about that for a certain time in your life, having the discipline and being able to do that work. But, after like 40 years of it, I was like, I need a little more flexibility than this. And I
Mhm.
finally have that. And then to answer your question about Italy, my brother moved here. He went to school in Venice. He speaks fluent Italian. He moved here about a year and a half. He's got young kids. They're 7 and 4, and he and his
Mhm.
wife, uh, they retired early and moved here to a small town outside of Florence. And my parents decided in their 80s they want to be near their grandkids. So they just bought a house, and I got here about 2 weeks before they arrived to help them set it up. So I got the internet, I got them an Italian phone number, I got the plumber here, I got the handyman, they call it a do it all, a tutto fare, it means do everything. So I got that all set up for them in advance, and yeah, I wouldn't really have been able to do that. And also, I get to see my niece and nephew here in Italy, and I'm taking some classes locally to be better with the language. Yeah, it's just I never thought I'd be able to do something like this.
But
So
just to summarize what you just said, you're able to continue building your business, continue meeting with any clients you have, continue on your work mission while you're enjoying Italy,
yeah,
educating yourself a little bit, helping out your family, and just
mhm.
living a different life for a month or two. And then
Yeah,
you'll come back home again.
right.
Your
Yes.
business has not suffered.
Right. Oh, no, no, not at all. And, I mean, it's just I have my ring light right there, and I actually recorded a podcast here last week. Just I don't have my fancy mic. It's okay. I think some people maybe even like it to be a little more off the cuff sometimes. My podcasts are, pretty practiced and polished, and sometimes I just want to be a little more down to earth and accessible. So it was one of those. But yeah, like you can do work from anywhere at this point. The internet, getting that set up, speaking Italian wasn't easy, but I got it done.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
awesome. What would you say to that person who might be watching this right now and maybe they've been in a job or a corporate
Yeah.
world or they're in a team of some sort for a long time and
Yeah.
they're just feeling like they could do so much more if they weren't
Mm.
there and yet they're scared because
Yeah.
that's been the norm for, like you say, so many years. They don't even know where to start. They're
Yeah.
afraid of maybe a dip in income while they're learning something new.
Yeah.
What would you just say to somebody like that? What would be their first steps?
I mean, it's hard to give universal advice, but I would say if you've got the means and the inclination and it's keeping you awake at night and you're feeling like your heart is somewhere else and you want to do this thing you've been wanting to do and you can plan for it and it's not reckless, I would of course, I would say you should do it because I've done it. But also, I would caution people to be aware that it is not easy, especially if you've been doing this for so much of your adult life, and especially if you like it a decent amount. That was a huge identity shift for me. I would be prepared for that, and I would also say don't hesitate to join entrepreneurship groups, be part of communities,
Mm.
and pay to learn and to, like accelerate your progress. Because you get to a certain age, like me, and I'm not in my 40s, I'm not in my 30s, I'm definitely not in my 20s, and I don't have all the time in the world. I don't want to take 4 years to learn how to do something, you know what I mean? And there are people who can help you accelerate your learning and people you can talk to before. I would even maybe join some of those things beforehand if you can and find out more about what this looks like. And certainly anybody who wants to talk to me, you can do that.
Well, I have to tell you that I agree with you 1,000%. When
Yeah.
I first entered the online world, I did not do that. Because of cost, we were on a very, very fixed budget, and
Yeah.
every time I found a coach or a mentoring group or a mastermind, the cost was prohibitive,
Yeah.
and I couldn't justify spending the cost when we had 5 kids at home,
Mm.
begging to do a sport, and we're like, "Not now, we need more money."
Yeah.
So money was an issue. So I got into the online entrepreneur world without everything that you just mentioned,
Mhm.
and I never really got off the ground. I did a little
Mhm.
bit, and I had spurts, and then I'd
Yeah.
be frustrated, and other people on my team didn't get me because they were not building their business online like this. So I felt like I was
Yeah.
in an island, so to speak, by myself.
Mhm,
It
mhm.
wasn't until 2021 when I started joining I did private coaching. I did group, like academy type online
Yes.
coaching. I joined a mastermind. I started reaching out to people that I met in those groups and
Yeah.
developing one-on-one relationships. And I was finding out who's good at tech, who's good at Canva. So like
Right.
when I'm frustrated, instead of getting frustrated, I pick up the phone and say, hey, so-and-so, help me. I can't
Yeah,
figure
your own support
Oh,
network.
in the top left. Oh, thank you. Yeah,
Yes.
that
Right.
kind of
Save you
thing.
so much
And
time.
my energy, my network, and my business have done this
Yeah,
since
I believe it.
I joined in with other people. So I just,
Yeah.
no one has to be doing the same business, but there's so many similarities when you're just launching, branching out, and trying to figure out something new and different than the traditional job you've done your whole life. And most people
Yes.
around you don't get you. They think you're crazy for wanting to do this. They will tell you why you should not leave that
You
current job,
shouldn't.
why you should not do that. They'll tell you about
Yeah.
every person they know that's tried and failed, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why it's important to reach out to someone like you, someone like me, other people that you meet here on LinkedIn that have already done that successfully, because we'll bring you into our networks of success and we will keep
Yeah.
referring people to you until you have the right support system to be able to achieve whatever it is you're doing, because you can't do it alone.
Yes. No, I think that that was the thing I didn't realize, that these support communities existed.
Mhm.
They really did, like, save my whole sanity
Mhm.
so much.
Absolutely. Well, in closing, would you like
Yes.
to drop either the link to your book, tell people about how they can work with
Yeah.
you, where they can find you? Just do a little advertisement for yourself and your
Yeah,
business.
definitely. So I'm right here on LinkedIn a decent amount, but I do have a website designed by that fantastic brand designer I had mentioned who was on my podcast. My website is just my name, toscafasso.com, and you can access my book there. You can find out more about my podcast, which is called Manager on a Mission. You can get that anywhere you get podcasts. And then I do have a download. It's a Good Manager's Guide. It's a checklist of things you can do to make things better for your team
Hmm.
today, next week, next quarter, or even next year. And that's just a free download from my site. Basically, if you forget anything, everything, just go to my site. It's the easiest way to find out about me. And like I said, I've also got the podcast Manager on a Mission.
And if you don't remember Tosca's last name, it is highlighted in the top of this, in the post where you see this video. So you can
Yeah,
just
and for the replay, I can put links in the comments too, so you'll find that
absolutely.
down there.
Well,
Yeah,
Tosca, thank you so much. I wish your parents the
welcome.
best of luck in their
Thank
adjustment in
you.
Italy. I wish you luck in learning Italian.
Yeah,
And I
thank
just
you.
thank you for sharing your journey with us, sharing your wisdom. And I thank you for your honesty that the switch wasn't easy,
Yeah,
that you struggled. I think that's so much a part of our story. And people only see the finished product, they don't always know the journey. And so it's another reason I like to do these casual conversations like this.
yeah,
People sometimes feel like they're way out there and other people online are up here. And then the more we have these conversations, they realize they're not much
yeah.
different. We're
Yeah,
all the
you're
same.
among friends.
We're all among friends. That's
Yeah,
right. So,
definitely.
well,
Thank you,
thank
Laurel.
you. I hope you have a beautiful night. And for the
Thank
rest of
you.
us, next Wednesday, I have another amazing guest who has inspired me probably more than anybody I've ever met on LinkedIn. And so, Tosca, you know her. Her name is Myrna. She's
Oh,
going to be
yeah.
my guest next week. So,
Oh, I'll have to catch
um,
that.
I've never had her on yet, so it'll be
Great.
amazing. But anyways, I hope everybody has a great rest of the week. And thank you all so much for watching, and reach out with any questions, or if you need to be hooked up or connected to somebody, let either one